Do you ever think about how much YouTube thumbnails changed in Geometry Dash videos? It's a random topic, but I was looking through some level showcases and content back in the 2016 to 2017-ish era just for some nostalgia, and I noticed how different they are now. If you look around in say 2020 or 2013, you can see how much it changed over the game's lifespan. For example, today you have thumbnails that are hand-drawn artworks or have a graphic design style to them, or you have thumbnails that are so concise or compelling, and sometimes you get thumbnails that make you wonder how the human mind can come up with this. So this video is an excuse to look at the history of Geometry Dash YouTube thumbnails and see how we went from this to this. Or that.
Hey, it's Puueds, and I've been looking at my thumbnail to see how much it's evolved for the past 10 years, and yep, I can definitely see it. Look at this dark line on my thumbnail. Google says it's harmless, mostly, but we can look at it in a different way and compare photos of it right now and 10 years ago. Yes, I prepped 10 years in advance for this. This is my thumbnail from 10 years ago, and this is it now.
If you were around in Geometry Dash from 2013 to 2014, or even just look back at them, you might be really familiar with the random frame of the level that they were playing, or especially the title card of the level. It was the easiest thing to do since it's right there for you, and YouTube back then gave the option to set a thumbnail from a random frame of the video.
This is absolutely nostalgia talking, and I miss it, even if I will never use it.
Although there is more to these earlier thumbnails than just a screenshot of the game, some thumbnails are a POV of them playing on their phone. While yes, it's endearingly not that great, it was at a time when native screen recording wasn't really widely available on iOS and Android. You had to download an app for that, and most videos have both their hands in view. Using probably a tripod or what I assume is their mouth, you can get the full authentic experience of someone playing Geometry Dash on their phone back in 2013 and 2014 if you haven't already. I will say, for this one video where someone beat all the main levels, it is very impressive that they can actually play the game with one hand and keep the other hand stable while recording. I actually tried to do that, and I don't know if I'm terrible at being dexterous, but it's just really hard. And yeah, my left hand was destroyed after that. Weirdly enough, some thumbnails are just the loading screen or the banner, but there are some where they did put more effort into it. Okay, yeah, the bar is really low, it is just text and a bit of a blur, but it still leaks better than just screenshots. And that's pretty much most of what you would see for thumbnails at the time. This is basically shouting out that this is Geometry Dash in its purest form, because most people were not that great with using YouTube or graphic editing software. When Geometry Dash started blowing up around 2014 thanks to PewDiePie, Jacksepticeye's videos are more interesting here, not because of the content inside, but if you take a look at his thumbnails, it's a snippet of how Geometry Dash would present itself towards its outsiders and its community. If the community wanted to keep the game growing with more content, it had to scream its name and identity out like its life depended on it. There might be a few official icons photoshopped like with Jacksepticeye, even somehow surviving to today with Tried's 2025 April Fool's videos. But when I look into the content I used to watch in 2014 to 2015, nothing feels like old school Geometry Dash content than seeing Geometry Dash in the thumbnail. Merg and EVW slapped it everywhere, and for EVW, it's crazily consistent. This was also the time where being absurd to get attention was the norm for content, and there are some classic video ideas and subsequently thumbnails that could not work today. For example, the Ice Cubes in Shorts challenge is an image that I do not remember until looking back for this video, and sadly now I do. The face clip challenge thumbnail is hilarious out of context, and I'd say the same for his Neptune VTube Theory of Everything video or his weird levels. A lot of these are genuinely amazing and hilarious to look at to this day. Difficulty phases were also super popular at this time. If you wanted to signal that you were playing easier levels, well, you had an entire range of emotions to choose. When Riot was in his prime, you could say his videos were hit with a demon infestation, and well, you wouldn't be wrong. A demon face paired with the level's name was basically the most simple and effective formula for a thumbnail. Like, genuinely, you put a level's name at the top, a demon face in the middle, and a creator's name below that, and boom, you have almost the entirety of Max's 9 showcase thumbnails. Unironically, they are a treat to look at, and I'm in awe of their simple but great composition and consistency. But also, it gave birth to the Minions and Hungry Humphrey thumbnails. Not only that, the art of making Geometry Dash thumbnails was starting to grow with the increasing accessibility of Photoshop, either by paying for it or people started to learn making graphic visual effects and adding glow to thumbnails. Yes, we can't escape glow even outside of Geometry Dash.
Why did the creator put so much glow on the sun?
This is featured at best. At this point, it started to evolve into its own thing and it was everywhere for literally any level showcase for a good while. When I do look at one of these thumbnails, in my brain I know it's just words, but making the level name itself be this intricate and cool looking is a great and versatile skill. And this style is really exclusive to Geometry Dash because of the conditions and limitations of using level names and a random frame of the level for thumbnails. Plus, the process of making them has really not changed all that much. There are a lot of thumbnails that forgo a frame of the level for the background and just create this somehow, but there are still a lot of thumbnails that use this decade-old process and succeed in getting people's attention and being really cool to look at. The person who's been the most consistent, albeit very simple in my opinion, is Vibrant, where he's always uploading showcases every couple of days for the past 11 years. Genuinely, you can document a lot of common or simpler Photoshop-based thumbnail styles from his videos. We've been mostly talking about the showcase side of Geometry Dash, but we haven't really talked much about the content side outside of EVW and Merge, and there is quite a lot to talk about. When you look at most mainstream GD content today, it's your usual fare of thumbnails that feel like they are just conveying the content of the video. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's a formula that works, and it's using text and images that are absolutely so clear and telling you what it is, while creating intrigue as a whole to get people to click. Moldy does this, Doggy occasionally does it depending on the video, GD Stallion does it, and King Samlo does it. These thumbnails do get me to watch them, and it is an algorithm game, so I don't blame people for wanting to play the game to grow. It's just weird that when researching what thumbnails used to be like, thumbnails nowadays feel very formulaic to get more traction, and not really needing to scream that it's Geometry Dash, and rather making it so easy to see that it is Geometry Dash. Compare one of the classic EVW thumbnails and a recent video. The one thing that is immediately obvious is that there is no Geometry Dash in the thumbnail anymore. And another thing that's more subtle is that the background is more intentional. No longer is it a random screenshot of the level, and it actually tries to help add more context into the video's topic. Or it's just very basic. The formula and asset use are still the same, but the process or thinking of using them is actually pretty different. Even backgrounds that are screenshots have that intent of engineered simplicity and so easy to understand philosophy. If you're like me and are more used to the, say, older formula, the line of thinking with modern thumbnails would probably go down like this.
The video is great, but the thumbnails just... I still respect the hustle and the effort anyways.
There are thumbnails that I still like from this sort of style though. Like Colin's thumbnails are in my opinion the best kind of simplicity for a thumbnail. It's not really in your face and it builds intrigue just by basically being itself. Troy PM when he was active had thumbnails that had the same style with more complexity and a different font sometimes. Matt Martin and Voltrock's commissions of hand-drawn thumbnails for their videos are very cool style that I don't see that often. Before this style of thumbnails, graphic visual effects were still very dominant for content. A look into Red Hussy's videos at the time can definitely prove that. And before that, Geometry Dash assets and fonts were also really popular and in line with the current thumbnail styles at the time. Case in point, Riverside and Northcloud Tilda. This style still lives on if you look in the right place, with the most prominent person doing this being Whirlwind. When looking back even briefly, it's personally jarring that thumbnails have changed this much and moved towards a more clean aesthetic. Like, yeah, this is a thumbnail that does well, but I don't know if I'll have any lasting fun feelings about it when I want to look back and rewatch some content, even if the video itself is great. Now, what else could we look into that didn't really neatly fit into the last like 9 to 10 minutes without a side ramble? Well, there's a few more bases to cover. Actually, there's more than just a few, which are screenshots of levels still being a thing, demon faces and the memes that were born because of the thumbnails, hand-drawn and graphic design styles, tutorials, funny thumbnails, some of my favorite thumbnail styles, my own thumbnails because, you know, and weirdly enough, see 1997 himself. Even though there are quote-unquote better thumbnails, none are close to the easiness that just comes from choosing a random frame of the level and having that as the thumbnail. Saying it like that, you'd think there wouldn't be that many people who do it at all, but when it comes to showing what the video or the level is about in the most concise way possible, I don't think there's any person who does it better than Nexus GD. It's so simple that you can tell what the level is about for almost every video. There are a lot of levels that revolve around a gimmick or a well-known idea itself, which makes this a lot easier. Although the success of it is limited by properly crediting the creator and level in the video title to share them their own popularity. And it's really unfortunate that those videos without credit are more successful than those that are because algorithm. While I'd like to see credit as much as the next guy, I understand that if you want to grow or do something more exciting, eventually the algorithm will chase you up, especially when showcasing other people's works. And then Kremau still does normal screenshots for his thumbnails, and I'll click on every video he uploads without fail. And not only that, there are several videos out there that are so successful despite their simple thumbnail format. This is some of what I know, but I recognize these whenever I see them. As a side note, Jonathan using 4 screenshots and arranging them into a quadrant frame is a clever way of previewing much more of your level before people click on to see. Do you remember a meme where there were like 20 billion demon difficulties? Well, people had to make them at first to let this happen. The reason why they were made were for thumbnails. There are so many custom demons that you would see in thumbnails for a few years from 2014 or 2015, just because the gap between defining difficulties among demons was getting a lot more vague. Like, what's the difference between hard, very hard, and insane demon, for example? 3 terms that were used a lot back in the day.
One does have an adverb.
It's rare to see demon difficulties being used for thumbnails nowadays though. In a way, I do miss it, but I don't mind if it's gone. It served its purpose in telling people it was a demon, and we now know more unique ways of sharing that it's a demon, and that you don't really need it anymore to gain traction like you had to back in the day. But you can still find thumbnails with demon faces in them. You just gotta look around. This would be the most straightforward and simplest part of thumbnails to talk about, as there aren't that many hand-drawn or graphic design style thumbnails out there, and the history of them is more tied to the creator/artist/creator team rather than to Geometry Dash, albeit it still overall contributes to the culture of thumbnail making. When there are, all I can really say is,
it is cool.
So a few people I would mention are Ticklos for his own videos, Galaluf when he occasionally does it, and Rafer, who's probably the most prominent hand-drawn thumbnail person. Some of the stuff he's really made is really iconic, in his early days and today. For example, Prelude has so many separate thumbnails and artworks overall, it's genuinely crazy. Surprisingly, there was a recent level inspired by it made by Osiris GD. GD10 in its boss fight was really cool. It's a very cartoony take on GD cubes that set the standard for other artists, and I can very much see their influence. I'd be surprised if someone went for a more realistic or grounded style. As for graphic design, Irrel and Liraki are really sick. Irrel's thumbnails, especially for its layout and build swap series, are so consistent and great to look at overall. And with Liraki, his stuff is overall just awesome. The emergence of the art/modern style in 2.0 and its evolution in 2.1 and 2.2, along with the growing popularity of graphic design outside its industry, has really led to an interesting mix of GD thumbnails. It's nice to see clean art and typography, something that you rarely, if not ever, saw outside of a handful of creators. At least that's graphic design and what we know of it today. There were thumbnails that weren't just graphic visual effects or only screenshots. If you look at Zobros around 2016 to 2017, his consistent thumbnail style that has a border at the top with the level name and the GD logo is very simple and effective. And there's actually no icon in the thumbnail, which makes the focus solely on the level itself, which is a neat and professional touch. Zaponya's another person much like Viper, where you can document a lot of the game's thumbnail history based on his channel videos alone. His video thumbnails from 2016 to 2018 have a structure to it, with the level's creators and names separated by a line, and the difficulty written out on the right with its corresponding color in the game. It's pretty sleek and clean. Although I will say that the difficulties word being inside a square makes it feel like I'm looking at syllables separately just because of how tight it is, like demon, insane, and Isai. There are a lot of tutorials out there, and you can actually learn how to make these thumbnails yourself. The process isn't really easy. I know I couldn't make half the stuff I just talked about.
Even the random frames?
No.
Good.
You can see how they incorporate blending modes, layering styles, and a lot of Photoshop effects. It's pretty cool to see how it's done on either on Photoshop or Paint.net or other softwares. It's a unique craft where the words really aren't just informative or being positioned well for the composition, they're part of the artwork. Funnily and ironically enough, the thumbnails for some of these videos are the laziest part because they're just a random thumbnail they made. Alright, can you tell me what this thumbnail is about without the title of the video? No? Well, the title of this video is near impossible to get, so let's take a look at the answers that we have here. What are you supposed to? What the f? If you haven't got it, it's okay. I wouldn't have either, even when the level name was actually in the title. Thank you, Wolvez. And that's not the only time his thumbnails are like this. In fact, there's a lot. Like, the entire catalog worth. No, seriously, you keep scrolling and it never ends. And there are a lot more thumbnails out there that are just as diabolical and random, all thanks to the community getting better with graphic visual effects. So may I present a slideshow of the best thumbnails in Geometry Dash that I found. You know, Xerx's thumbnails for Nepesta are just really surprisingly good. Like, so good that they inspired an entire thumbnail style about it. It's this combination of graphic visual effects, classic fonts for Geometry Dash, Photoshop, and himself that lead to such a recognizable thumbnail style. It's whimsical and experimental, and it makes every video a joy to click on. Like random processing, for example. It gets the idea of random portals and blast processing across, but it's done with photoshopping Nepesta himself into different game modes, which makes for a really funny thumbnail. Even for a more serious thumbnail like Sand Sailor, both Nepesta and Xerx were so creative in tying the thumbnail to the video. Huge kudos to Xerx for making all of Nepesta's thumbnails to this day. An honorable mention for thumbnails is Rotop himself. It's so clean and literally unlike any other thumbnail style I've talked about, and I could say the same for Etsa back in 2017 to 2018, which when I look back feels like an officially endorsed thumbnail style. Hell, the GD 2.0 awards were on this channel, and Stormfly was recent content, which is very simple, but I really like it a lot. Speaking of Etsa, I grew up in this era and I remember him being the guy for thumbnails and video editing at the time. Looking back, it is actually kinda derivative and his thumbnail style is just basically the quintessential example of using the style options on Photoshop. Still like them though. If you know Scott the Woz, you can tell that all my content thumbnails are based on his style, almost full verbatim. My face on one side, the video title somewhere in it, and the border around the thumbnail to top it all off. In a way, it's a really neat, unique, and consistent style that makes it feel like a series. There are some thumbnails that I'm proud of, like with audio-visual sampling CC, go watch that video when you're done with this, Sonic Wave and its 80+ remix, and Hell Levels. But it's not that fit for the algorithm, and we can still all agree that they do look great. It's just not as overly simple, or that it uses duly tried content thumbnail templates that possibly guarantee more success on YouTube. Behind the scenes of these videos, I did get very, and I mean very occasional advice on changing my thumbnails to fit the algorithm more. It's what all GD content creators and those who used to make GD content have to face, and while I'm going to say that my style is pretty much here to stay, I'd be lying if I wasn't sometimes lost on how to get people's attention on YouTube that isn't using Scott the Woz as a baseline. But for the showcases of my solos, I'm actually really happy with them. The best ones I've made in my opinion are Before the Square and Calm Frenzy because they are really cool conceptually and in execution. You might be asking, why does C1997 have his own section? He's more known for his content, and there are 24 other things about that you can talk on. Well, yeah, he was a pioneer for GD documentaries and news content, yet his thumbnail style was super unique because they're just like PowerPoint slides. It's so candid and fundamentally simple, and I could trace a lot of documentaries or reviews or even typical content thumbnails back to him. His Genius series thumbnails are literally 4 relevant screenshots and the series name itself in the middle, and there are a lot of videos with a demon face and a level of the topic behind it. It doesn't neatly fit into any style that I really mention, and this endearing simplicity in a time when everyone was striving to improve their graphic skills helped him become such an identifiable pioneer we think he is in the GD content space. His content was good at the time, but for us to know about him in the first place, his titling and thumbnails representing his topic needed to get him out there, and he did a damn good job at that in the most surprisingly plain way possible. You look at his thumbnails and you basically just understood. We have finally reached the end. So what has looking through a lot of thumbnails taught us? Well, we definitely now know there's a huge subculture surrounding thumbnails. There wouldn't be so many different styles across people and eras if there wasn't one. GD not blowing up straight away and being released in an early time of the internet led to a grassroots foundation that helps make up the DNA of nearly every thumbnail today. I'd be surprised if a GD YouTuber, player, or creator consistently didn't use a GD background, font styles, or levels in their thumbnails. Even with the algorithm today encouraging YouTubers to simplify their thumbnails and present GD in the clearest or quick curiosity-inducing way possible, the art of GD thumbnails still lives on in showcases, awards, and content. And I hope this video is one of many efforts to look into GD thumbnails and their rich variety and history.
I know what you're thinking. You might be a bit underwhelmed by the lack of evolution between my thumbnail from 10 years ago to now. To be fair, human evolution did take a few million years. Although I should look up what Google really says about this dark line on my thumbnail. Apparently it's signaling that I have an illness or an injury. Ow.